it's the meditation, though, that helps them be still.
Okay.
And so we kind of as a society have things backwards. Like, oh, well, they're not going to be able to sit still, so they can't meditate.
Right.
Or I don't have time to meditate. I've had busy moms, busy single moms, busy married moms, any moms say to me, oh, I don't have time to meditate. That is the very reason why you should be meditating, because you literally gain more hours in the day because you're reprogramming your mind and your body to act in harmony. So then you're flowing through the day. You actually gain more time.
That was Lenee Braxton, and I'm your host, Joe Lemon. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. This is one of the most needed episodes I've published in a while. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about mindfulness and performance and literally going inward so you can have your best outward self. And I know these are concepts that you guys have heard before. You've explored them. You've probably heard all the commercials from LeBron James with his brand new Calm app partnership.
We've always thought of great athletes as the strongest, the fittest, chiseled to perfection. But what's a strong body without a sound mind? We're so focused on strength that we forget to strengthen our focus. The mind is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes.
But I'm telling you guys, this is something that understanding how to tap into your flow state, understanding how to create that stillness in your mind and have that control back in your life, man, this is so needed for today's age. Because even though we're inside the house, even though we're trapped inside of our four walls or inside your mini mansion or whatever type of setup you have going on, literally being able to understand how to maneuver and change your perspective is one of the most powerful things that you can do. A lot of us have spent tons of time trying to max out our bodies, but very few of us fully understand how to control and tap into our mind. And so this is perfect timing to bring on today's guest, Lenee Braxton. She's the founder of the Holistic Performance Center out of Atlanta. We recorded this episode at the legendary Patchwork Studios. And so when we think about Lenee's origin story into healthcare, it's pretty remarkable, honestly. So she originally got started into it whenever she was one of the first black cheerleaders for the Carolina Panthers. And soon afterwards, when she was around 24, I believe, she was diagnosed with MS. And so this really sparked her interest in trying to find a lot of holistic approaches. And so little things like fasting for clarity, holistic modalities such as yoga, Ayurveda, guided meditation, and hypnosis. And we get into all that, and I got to tell you, honestly, I was a little apprehensive about that hypnosis portion, but after the conversation, I can see how it could be beneficial. So I know you guys are going to be in for a treat. You're going to be in for some ways to change how you view your current setup and your situation. And that's one of the biggest takeaways from me that I've gotten is that in this stillness, in this time when everyone's on lockdown inside the house, man, you can really change how you view some of these obstacles or even opportunities. Just all depends about your perspective. So having a way to care for yourself, slow down your actual thinking, because even though I'm inside, my whole brain can still get racing and that could take off, right? So being able to get that under control and evaluate things from a different lens, I think is one of the biggest takeaways. And be very keen whenever we talk about the whole flow state. We jump into it for a little bit, but the flow state is a place that a lot of us need to really understand how we can tap into it for ourselves. Some people catch it with an actual beat. Some people get it through like meditation, but being able to drop into a flow state so you can have that concentration where time is like vertical, it's just endless. You don't want to feel it. That's a skill that all of us can benefit from. So be very aware of those little jewels that she's dropping throughout the conversation. I know you guys are going to love it. So sit back and relax and enjoy this conversation with me and Lenee Braxton. We even touched the surface of yet. And so to have on Lenee Braxton onto the podcast, welcome onto the show.
Thank you. Hey, Joe.
Well,
glad to be here.
You're working in this space that I'm really interested in.
Yes.
The fact that, performance, health, wellness,
yes.
Corporate wellness as well, right? You're doing some things
corporate wellness, mind-body medicine.
Yes.
mental health, all of that rolled into one.
Yeah.
I like to call it integrative performance enhancement.
Love that.
Because it encompasses so many modalities. I, as you mentioned, study performance. My bachelor's degree is in dance.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say how long ago I got that.
Did you go to Cal U? Is that right?
No. Well, yes, for my first master's degree.
Okay.
I did.
That's
I did
awesome.
go to Cal U. I forgot you're a Pennsylvania
Yeah,
guy.
I'm PA guy. Yeah.
My bachelor's degree is from UNC Charlotte,
Oh.
University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Go
That's what
Niners.
you really rep. I
Yeah,
can tell.
yeah, go Niners. And Cal U for my first master's degree in exercise science, specializing in
Wow.
sports psychology. And now I'm getting my second master's in clinical mental health counseling, as well as my Ph.D. in mind-body medicine.
You love education, I can tell.
How'd you guess?
That's phenomenal.
How'd
I
you
mean,
guess?
I know, right? Only 6 or 7
Yeah,
degrees. That's
yeah.
And I mean,
That's it. Yeah.
but you know, I feel like this is one of those spaces where you almost have to have that education. I mean, this is a little bit
do.
different than just kind of hands-on, real-world experience. You can't just break down some of these topics by just kind of, living them out as some other professions can.
It's true. It's true. There are a couple parts to that. I will say that, and I'll just say healers in general,
Yeah.
clinicians,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call them. Each day I see a new term out there, but I would say that those of us in the helping professions, if you will, are passionate about helping people be their very best, preventing illness, preventing mental illness, and physiological illnesses, as well as helping people to recover and really maximize their potential. You were saying we're trying to get that last bit,
Yeah.
Whether it is an athlete performing on the field, or a corporate employee preventing burnout, or even one of the clinicians helping them to prevent burnout.
Because that happens a ton.
It happens a ton. It runs rampant.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where a lot of my doctoral studies are coming in. Speaking of integrative mind-body medicine, using holistic modalities to help enhance the medicine that we already have out there. And then also putting the science behind it. So we do. I have to keep going to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we need to have the science behind what we're claiming.
Tell me how you feel about this statement, because I love the fact that you're putting science into it. And, I feel like, and this is me and my wife just talk coffee shop stuff, right?
Yeah.
And we're just,
It's a beautiful thing.
And we get woo-woo a little bit now, especially now that we move out to the West Coast. Oh, man.
Totally
I
woo-woo.
mean, we did start diving into that whole realm a little bit.
I love woo-woo.
but-
You all are my people. Yeah.
I'm slowly becoming. I'm slowly getting there. And I mean, so, but the science, though, how important do you think that is layered in with some of the things that are I say woo-woo, but intuitive to us?
It's extremely important because, and the reason why is that these modalities, the holistic modalities, they're ancient. They've been around for centuries,
Right.
Millennia, but people haven't really used them, and we've gone into Western medicine and newer medicine when really that isn't working. The healthcare model really does need to change. And so what I'm finding is the science backed behind some of the holistic modalities. It's allowing people to just revisit what we already have. Yoga, which I also teach, is not anything new.
Right.
It's centuries old. Ayurveda isn't anything new.
That's a new one for me, though.
Yeah. So Ayurveda is ancient Indian holistic way of living. Ayurveda is a way of life. Your prakriti, or your constitution, meaning how your body is made up, basically. For instance, somebody who may be very energetic, have a high metabolism, a certain body type may be considered pitta, and that is their dosha, their prakriti. And so bringing in some of the Ayurvedic practices, there's a certain way that pitta people can eat, their sleep, and it shows how they're out of balance or whether their doshas are vitiated. And so that allows them to either live harmoniously, or if you have a buildup of ama or things in your body that aren't natural and aren't in line with Ayurvedic principles, then they say, based on Ayurvedic medicine and knowledge, that is the entry to disease.
Interesting.
And that is what begins the disease process.
So, this right here is already really, really getting some bells go off for me, because one of the things that, like I was saying back home, we mess around, and I like to do like a lot of this intermittent fasting and such. But for my wife, it's like killer for her. It gives her immediate headache. Yeah. Maybe, and we got totally different types of body compositions. So where I feel like I'm thriving, she's like, dude, we got to have breakfast. What are you talking about? you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it is something with that of understanding what your body really needs, and understanding that we're all made up differently. And I recently completed a 60-hour fast. Wow.
So,
60 hours.
Yeah. Okay. So for 2.5, almost 3 days.
Yeah.
Never experienced so much clarity.
Yeah.
It was definitely supplemented. There are certain nutrients and minerals that we do need. Lots of water. I had some bone broth, and we can talk about a little bit more how to do that. But as far as performance enhancement and getting to a place where you're literally breaking your body down so that it can heal itself, all of our bodies, no matter what constitution we're made up of, we definitely have the ability to self-heal. So when you're intermittent fasting, that's essentially what you're doing. You're giving your body a break from digestion, from chewing, to be able to heal itself. So I would say if it's difficult for your wife, it's probably more mental. And she may be trying to match your energy with how you're fasting. You all can do it together. But I would recommend, just, intuitively from thinking about what you're saying, that she do her fast one way and you do your fast another way.
Interesting. Okay.
We can talk more about that. Yeah.
Well, so you know what? Before we dive in deeper, I think people need to kind of feel why you got into it.
Oh, sure.
How did you get into healthcare? How did you get into this? Into this space of being interested about people and like what's the best fasting principles and everything else?
Yeah, it's okay. So to make a long story short, because I know I could literally talk about. To make a long story long, I could talk about this all day because I'm so passionate about it. And I'm just laughing because you're talking about how your wife did your fast. I just want to throw in, my husband looks at me like I'm crazy when he's like, you're not eating for almost 3 days? What do you mean?
It's funny how that works out, though, isn't it? Exactly. I don't know one couple that's like, hey, we're just on the same wavelength. She fasts, I fast. I haven't heard that story yet. I mean, I don't know that many people, but I haven't heard it.
Yeah, exactly. So we could do things together, but just have to do them our own way.
Right.
Well, my mother actually is a retired biology and chemistry teacher. She's a scientist and did a lot of biomedical research in the 70s, 80s, and 90s before she retired. Wow. And so I've always kind of had the science in the back of my head, grew up before it was popular to juice. She was juicing. Before it was popular to kind of put herbs on your food or do this holistic thing, she was doing it.
Yeah.
And
how'd your mom get into it, by the way? I mean, I'm just curious.
She always just loved science.
Okay.
She just always loved science.
So she was always reading about it in the past.
Yes, everything. Yeah, because brilliant woman.
If she was doing that during the 80s and 90s, I'd have to feel she was way ahead of the curve.
She was, and actually 70s. Because she has 2 master's degrees, one in biology and one in chemistry. And she got that in the 70s on full scholarship at Bennett College, and then went over to get to North Carolina A&T University to get her 2 master's degrees, full scholarship, full ride. Awesome. Yeah. So, and then for a woman, and then African American woman in the 70s, that was a big deal.
It's major.
Yeah, really, really big deal. So that seed already being planted in my being was there. But then I, left for a while. You grow up, you eat anything you want, you just kind of, live life. Then in 2000, I lost feeling on my left side and had some paralysis. And within the course of about 2 days, couldn't even walk.
Wow.
And it went down pretty quickly. And through a series of tests over about a 2-week period, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, for those out there that don't know. And that was a life-changing event in your early 20s, especially having been dancer NFL cheerleader for the Carolina Panthers. Actually, the first Black captain.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time they ever had a team. There were 450 girls that tried out.
Wow.
Yeah, my senior year of college.
How old were you then?
I was
What's your
21. I was one of the youngest on the squad also. Yeah.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely huge accomplishment. And our 25th anniversary, it's the 25th anniversary of the team this year, but our 25th anniversary, because we came along the second year, is next year.
Dope.
So that'll be, really, really cool.
Super dope.
Yeah. But I digress.
Yeah.
The MS, we're talking about that. So that, I will say, that is the beginning of how I became super aware of my health. How old were you?
What you had MS?
At the time, I was 24.
Wow, man.
Yeah, very, very young.
Yeah.
But a common age for MS diagnosis.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, anywhere between, I think the last time I checked was 24 and then the 40s. It's a pretty common window of diagnosis. But unfortunately, people are being diagnosed even younger, but they're living longer. Partly because there's medications to treat. There's a lot now. There's probably 8 or 9 medications out there to treat. But as far as preventing or curing, nothing has really been found.
Right,
We've made some headway, but I will say there are different types of multiple sclerosis as well, and there are different interventions. Recently, research has shown that intermittent fasting can definitely help with the progression of multiple sclerosis. I had not had a relapse in nearly 20 years. And so this has been, definitely a gift until last February. Okay. And it was what we call a pseudo relapse because I didn't go all the way down where I had in 2000, but I couldn't walk upstairs by myself. It was really, really humbling and really, really much of a wake up call. And so that's when I talk about helping professions and the healers and clinicians practice self-care. Because for me, that was a wake-up call. Because you have to realize when you're pouring so much energy out, you have to get some back, too, and give yourself some self-care. So we're touching on a lot of subjects.
No, but I mean, man, but it's true, though. I mean, the fact that, especially if you're doing it out of like an actual labor of love, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you just go because because this is what your calling is. This is what you got to do.
It is.
But then they're almost kind of oblivious to the fact that things are happening to themselves.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of that double-edged sword, I feel like.
It is. But I came back within a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was just a way, I think just a little nudge. Hey, remember your self-care also. But I will say that movement for me is medicine. Things like Pilates and yoga, things that I teach and incorporate. I have clients with MS and other conditions, and really movement for them is helpful. In addition to other things, diet, meditation, stress reduction, all of those things.
Any clue what really spawned the whole MS?
You know, there are a couple different theories out there, especially because there are several different types of MS now. Some people say that there's a genetic predisposition to people who are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, that there's something genetically that is activated, if you will, through some kind of virus or an environmental factor. It used to be, I believe, in the 80s that MS was kind of known as they would say, white girl's disease. And I know it's because of Annette Funicello. But then people like Richard Pryor were diagnosed. And Montel Williams, who used to have a talk show on. And then people I started meeting usually had some kind of heritage that was not African American a generation or two back.
Interesting.
And there is a study that shows that people who lived in colder climates also had MS manifest in their bodies. And I say manifest in their bodies. And the reason I say that is because even though I'm telling my story in the hopes of helping people, I don't claim it. It's not mine.
Yeah.
It's a condition that I was diagnosed with.
Yeah.
It's something that I work with, but it doesn't define me. And because I've been healed to move and to help, It's not mine. So I also believe there's a little bit of society there that allow us to kind of take on the conditions we have, you know, whether it's diabetes or the dreadful C word, you know, it's just a lot of sickness out there.
You know, to me, and this is one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast, because I feel like healthcare needs a different message behind it.
It does.
I think that health and fitness, like the aesthetics parts, we've done great. Like I remember as a trainer, I think trainers, well, at least from the marketing.
No, I agree. I agree because I also teach spin and Pilates and yoga, as I was mentioning, and it's funny when I kind of journeyed into this field because I was in corporate America for about 15 years.
What'd you do?
I was a corporate paralegal.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And so, it was eventful. Great career. I still have a lot of friends and former colleagues who then become my clients, of course.
Because lawyers get tons of stress.
Tons.
Whenever I was a trainer, I used to train a couple of different lawyers over at King and Spalding right across the street.
Oh, man, not far at all. Yeah, absolutely. No. We're just going in and out and flowing. It's all connected, as you can see. Yep. I would say that with fitness, I was nominated as Best Bar Instructor a couple of years ago in Best Self Atlanta magazine. And it was interesting because that world, that fitness world is so commercial when I really was just being at home in the ballet bar and then teaching those classes. But people were like, my classes, because I was adding in holistic modalities. So we do meditation at the end.
Oh, that's cool.
We do some therapeutic exercise. And it was helping them prevent further injuries if they were to go out and do CrossFit or something else. And then come back to my class and kind of recover because they were working the small eccentric muscles. But yes, to your point, health and fitness, aesthetically, we've done a great job.
At least with the messaging, I feel like, to where people take action. Like, because to me, like, I think about things like this. Okay, it's one thing if we can put together some nice words or videos or pictures, whatever they are, and we can market things well. But if they don't spawn action, then I feel like we kind of missed it.
I agree.
And so, but when it comes to healthcare and just, healing ourselves and the language that we use, talking about I'm a diabetic, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, most of my family has either type 1 or type 2, and they, and that's how they lead their convos. And I'm like, man, I wish we could reposition that a little
almost
bit,
like a badge of honor,
right?
It makes us, we're really a part of the family. We have it too.
That's right.
It's true when certain conditions are preventable. I mean, literally preventable. And I think it's just a matter of us getting that message out. When you say healing.
That's why I think that talking about the science is really also a part of it too. So all right, I want to dive into, all right, so we got into the MS part of your life. I didn't even know that occurred.
Oh, yeah.
That was huge.
That was huge. So really the impetus, but now I really can say that I've moved past kind of resting in that and beyond, because be able to teach spin classes and all of that. It's
a crazy journey.
Yeah, it is. Really crazy. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. I mean, and then you got into sports psychology as well.
Yes.
Okay. So when did you kind of tap into that? Because that's your master's program. Is that
that's
right?
my master's program, exercise science and sports psychology. Really, again, for personal benefit. But I saw something recently that said talent plus passion or helping people equals purpose. I think it was talent plus helping people equals purpose. And that would be the answer to that question, because having been an athlete and a performer, the MS journey was definitely physiological. It required me to really get into my yoga practice and my Pilates practice and a lot of healing things, but also psychologically. That literally was probably one of the biggest mental challenges, if you will, to overcome, because a lot, I think, with our lives is truly mind over matter. It truly is a matter of how we think. We are how we think. I also am a hypnosis practitioner in part of my business, and it's funny you smile because I recently did some research on minority interpretations or perceptions of hypnosis.
I was about to ask some questions. Yeah, that's why I started smiling. I was like, look, I got questions immediately.
But hypnosis is a modality that I use to go into my subconscious, self-hypnosis, or that of my clients. Because a lot of times, especially high-level, high-functioning athletes, we think with our conscious at the forefront. We're always thinking, we're always on, we're always strategizing. Mm-hmm. But deep in the subconscious, that is what reigns supreme, and that's what's true.
Interesting. So hypnosis, right? Mm-hmm. How have people... And I'm gonna dive into this one. I'm just kind of just start wading in the water a little bit.
Jump.
I mean, so
I've heard it all.
How have people received that? Whenever you say, "Hey, let's talk about hypnosis," is that something that people are open to?
Well,
or has it been a lot of resistance?
It depends on who. Mm-hmm. I would say that because my main clientele or my main focus are the athletes and non-sport performers. Let me just add that too. So actors.
High performers, though.
Yes, still high performers, artists. Usually, if it's someone that has seen recent movies, usually there's fear. I will say there's just a commonality or a constant fear or nervousness. Yeah. Because the fear is that their minds will be controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what the real
I got afraid. I ain't gonna lie.
I think what the real fear is really is that something they really feel will come out. Yep. Aside from being controlled, really no one can control your mind. And that is an important thing to say with hypnosis. No one can control your mind. It's still all your decision. Even age regression. Yeah. If you bark like a dog, it's your choice to bark like a dog. It's your subconscious choice.
Have you had people start barking?
No, I have not. I have not. No, but just throwing out, if a client starts crying uncontrollably, it means that we've touched something that needed to be healed. And once that's released, then the blockage is gone. And then literally you can feel themselves start to shift.
Is that so? What you say blockage? Is that like that part of your life where you like, man, I'm numb to certain things? Is that the blockage feeling that when people you say that?
That could be considered a blockage. Okay. Also, what I consider a blockage as a practitioner is something blocking your evolution or your growth.
Okay.
Yeah. And speaking from a mental health perspective, it's a blind spot for some of us, and that sometimes shows up in the form of self-sabotage. Or let's say you have a track star and there's that one event that they just keep coming in second or third. What is really stopping them from winning the gold? There's a blockage. Most of the time there's a blockage.
It's funny. I look at CEOs, I look at actors, entertainers, artists, athletes, of course, and I see because I was working with this one startup company that puts on EEG headsets, and looks at people's brain when they're doing certain activities.
It's very interesting.
And so, but their minds,
it's fascinating.
It's crazy to kind of see it on the EEG headset and see how the patterns kind of line up. I'm not a neuroscientist, but the guys I'm working with are, and they were
love to talk to them. That's fascinating.
Yeah. I would love to get you guys linked up. And it's one of those things where they're running those type of studies.
Yes.
So they can try to see, okay, if they can help identify certain young athletes earlier, right? So they want to know if someone thinks like Steph Curry. He may be 6'1", he may, you know what I mean? I mean, but does he have the type of mindset as some of these elite players? And they're doing the same things for CEOs and other athletes, and other entertainers. And with the part that's interesting to me, when you talk about this blockage, right? And I wonder how the mind would evolve if you just start moving back some of those barriers. Is there anything out there that's kind of shown that? Because if there is, I'm about ready to be right?
That's an interesting study. I actually recently did a study on using hypnosis in performers in non-sport non-sport performers and athletes. And yes, there is literature out there that removing blockages through hypnosis, or let's speak in the affirmative, tapping into that extra zest or extra fire, if you will, actually does help. But I have mixed feelings actually about that, looking at people's brains and being able to tell if we can determine the stars sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Ethically, I think that would be a no-no.
It's a huge mess. It was tough.
It's subjective.
Yeah.
It's subjective. Because what one person might see as a star,
mm-hmm.
given a different set of circumstances, could be the very failure of a team.
Interesting.
And so I think it's just each situation is different. I think really the key is getting to the children and giving everyone at a young age the same opportunities. And that's when you don't have to really worry about who's thinking this way or who's thinking that way, because there's enough success to go around.
You know, I like that. I like that a lot. And you know, when we think about getting to the kids early, we were talking about this.
Yeah.
You know, right before we got into deeper into the convo.
Yeah.
We were just kind of rolling.
Yeah.
But I mean, talking about kids coming up, is there a certain age whenever kids maybe should think about meditating, or maybe trying to get into some more mindfulness practices?
Oh, I recommend that mothers meditate with their babies in the womb.
Wow.
I recommend that newborns meditate. My daughter and I meditate together.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, and sometimes she'll come to me with her yoga mat and say,
Really?
"Mommy, let's go ahead and do a little meditating." Yes. There's a study recently.
That's gotta be cool to see, though.
Yeah.
To have your daughter come say, "Hey, I think both of us need this."
Yeah.
But it's good, though.
Great.
Yeah,
It's great. It makes me so proud. You know, it's very affirming that, hey, this is the way to go. And I did with volunteering when I was working with some of her classmates. I said, well, okay, guys, we're going to meditate just a little bit if everyone can't sit still. And of course, they loved it.
Wow.
I would say that any age, newborn to elderly, any age.
I would imagine that kids would have trouble trying to sit, but do they or no?
It's a matter of how you view meditation.
Okay.
Because I like to say some of my classes are even moving meditations.
Okay.
I think now meditation, the word is just more commonplace. So when kids hear meditation, they start sitting with their hands a certain way and start chanting Om or something and laughing. You know, can you imagine preteen boys
No.
imitating?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. No. Trying to keep me in my chair was that was like crazy.
Exactly. But yeah, it's the meditation, though, that helps them be still.
Okay.
And so we kind of as a society have things backwards. Like, oh, well, they're not going to be able to sit still, so they can't meditate.
Right.
Or I don't have time to meditate. I've had busy moms, busy single moms, busy married moms, any moms say to me, oh, I don't have time to meditate. That is the very reason why you should be meditating, because you literally gain more hours in the day because you're reprogramming your mind and your body to act in harmony. So then you're flowing through the day and you actually gain more time.
Man, you know, that's just fact. I mean, like
it is.
in my life anyway. I mean, that's just how it operates. And, you know, so one of the things that I don't do well is sit down to meditate. Like I try to do have this little calm app, you know, where you got like
I was going to ask if you meditated.
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Well, no. Let me be honest. I don't meditate in the seated position.
Okay.
But I will stop and I'll put this calm app on for like 5 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever. And it's like these little ringing bells to help you try to, you know, go through this breathing exercise. I love that. But I feel like when I work out,
it's meditation.
Yeah. I mean, but it's short, and I'm always zoning in and out, even in that 4 or 5 minute zone. But I feel like I get my best meditation either when I go on long jogs.
Okay.
And I get these stretches where it's just like I'm not thinking anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of going.
There you go.
Or I want some training. Like I'm working out and I start to get into the zone where I'm just like, I have this certain song on repeat, and I'm just like in
you're
this
in
flow
a meditative state.
Yeah, okay.
You are.
Okay. I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you definitely are in a meditative state.
Okay.
And that is a part of your health and
Yeah.
wellness. And you need that. If you were to remove that piece of the long jogs and zoning, getting into that zone, then you'd see a difference in every area of your life. That definitely is meditating. I think sometimes we have so many judgments and we're so regimented with, at 8 a.m., I must meditate here. And if I don't do it by 8 to this position and this song, then the whole week is messed up. And I just can't do it this week. I have to start next Monday. So we're so rigid with ourselves. I think just being more gentle to ourselves and saying, okay, well, my intention is to meditate. If I can just put on an app for 30 seconds, then that is meditating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even with the movement, though, right? So, like, we talk about moving around, that still has some beneficial outcomes if you can get into that flowy place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any movement.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be, again, regimented or a certain thing. I mean, some people may like their CrossFit or step aerobics. Well, do your CrossFit and step aerobics. The key is doing something that you like, that you can form a habit with, and where it becomes second nature and that you enjoy,
Interesting. So it's more about being in this rhythm, then, it seems like, than it is about kind of what exactly you're doing, but just more so getting your body into this phase of being
state
able
of
to
flow.
A state of flow. Okay.
State of flow.
Yeah.
In harmony, flow, equilibrium, all of those words. Yeah.
Man, so it's funny too, because talking about meditation and flow states, and this is something that recently I got back into. I'm talking about 3 weeks in, like just really recent.
Okay, brand new. I like it.
Brand new. Because
celebrate every win.
Because I literally have gone through this cycle of, habitual burnout.
Okay.
Because I travel out for work, so I'm running back and forth, and I'm like, I just don't got time. And then I realized I was using this common mistake. I'm sure you probably heard it all day.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm talking about on my podcast a lot more. I was like, man, now I get what my clients were saying. But I'm like, I don't get what you're talking about. You just can't stop eating bad food. You just can't stop drinking because you're such a bit,
Yeah.
And it's just like, being able to kind of force yourself to come off the gas. It feels like you're going to lose when you do that.
Yeah.
But it's actually the win. I mean,
it is.
Yeah.
It is the win. For example, a lot of major airports have express spas that you can go in, even if you don't want a treatment.
Yeah.
Usually they have a quiet room you can go in.
Yeah.
I know for a fact the San Francisco airport.
I've seen that one. Yep.
You have?
Yep.
Have you ever used it, Joe?
I haven't. I walk right past it every time.
Yeah, because you
as
don't
I'm
have
running
time.
late to my flight, I'm late. Gotta go.
Yeah.
But you're right, though. You're right.
Yeah.
They are there.
Yeah. And there's probably a flight like right after that you could probably take to pad in a little extra time. It's just those, when I speak of performance enhancement and not just working with athletes, but non-sport performers, executives, sales executives. You have to. It's integral because you can only give, your best to your clients, to your family, if you are, operating at an optimal state.
100%. And so, when we talk about regimens, right? Because now we're getting the weeds. I want to give the audience something that kind of take away that whole time excuse, right?
Yeah.
As the person
that's good.
I mean, because I use it, so this is even kind of selfish for myself here. I mean, but it's like everybody's like no time. The moms have no time, the dads have no time.
And we don't. We've created a society that literally they're 24 hours in a day and it's not enough time. Yeah. For most.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's trying to compound what they're doing and you got to get your content going. right.
Yeah.
You have to kind of market your business, all yourself, whatever you're into.
Yeah.
How do you recommend people carve out that time for themselves? Is it a morning thing that they have to do? Is it a late night thing or what's some thoughts on kind of best practices?
I would say rather than thinking of it as carving out, because I think sometimes the overwhelmed feeling of carving out any space again comes up against there is no time to carve out, you know? So when you get into integrative, which is how we operate in my practice, you get into integrating practices in modalities into your everyday, daily task. So if you are running through the airport, do you have on a monitor to see how many steps you're getting in? Or do you scoot to the right and put on some tennis shoes and walk fast or jog? Right. Maybe that replaces your run for the day.
Yeah.
Let's say it's somebody busy in carpool, a mom picking up kids in carpool at school. Well, while you're sitting at a standstill, you can put on meditation music, and maybe you can put the car in park if you're at a standstill and sit there for 3 to 5 minutes and breathe deeply.
Oh.
There you go. So I would say rather than carving out times, I would say integrating and incorporating these things into your daily life.
I love this idea of taking time to breathe. I mean, because again, the meditating thing, me just sitting down, my mind always just jumps off. But the breathing part, I feel like it helps me kind of center myself a little bit.
It's true.
Yeah, and at least kind of, train me to kind of lock in for a little bit and not think.
That's true. Yeah, it's literally oxygenating your cells.
Wow.
It's, I say deep breathing is like little love notes to your body. Yeah. It just, everything operates better. Yeah.
Have you heard this thing called the Wim Hof method, where they do like these rapid breathing techniques a little bit? And
I have not, but there are a lot of techniques out there. There's a lot. I have not.
Yeah.
That's something. Enlighten me.
He believes in doing like a lot of cold therapy. So these guys take ice baths for a while and do cold therapy, like contrast baths as well.
Yeah.
And there's like this deep breathing where they like try to blow out their bellies basically, and then pull your belly button in super fast and super tight. I wasn't sure if there's any extra benefit of doing that. I see it, and I see people practicing it, and I'm not sure if it's worth doing or whether I should just keep up with my regular stuff.
I think he's just taking a principle, an age-old principle, and no disrespect to
you're right.
To Mr. or Dr. Winhoff, but that's a cleansing breath and the Kemetic yoga that I studied. And you're literally rapidly expelling toxins from the lungs and from the body. And in conjunction with the other therapies that you're doing, it's just integrating that as well. And there are a lot of methodologies out there. So I say usually whatever works. Sometimes you just have to find what does. But that's definitely a good way to quickly expel toxins. It is important, you said, bringing in your belly and, as much as you can when you're expelling the air out. It's important to get all of that toxic air out, old air. And then inhale deep air, releasing even more air than you just inhaled.
So, because one of the common thoughts is the fact that, that you're always circulating the air, but air gets it just kind of lays in your diaphragm for a while. Is that what's happening? Or?
No, not necessarily. Okay. It does. Think of things in the state of flow as circular, coming in and going out, coming in and going out. It's the way your body uses the air. So even though technically it might not, especially with pollution and whatnot, be fresh air, really.
I'm in LA. Stepping it's got things in there.
Atlanta's close behind. Yeah, but it may not be technically fresh air, but still it's giving your body new oxygen from another source. It's not what we've already turned into carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
We're pushing it out. Yeah.
So do you have any ones that like you really are super fans of, any type of breathing techniques that maybe you're like, oh, this one is one that you really kind of grab onto?
One of my teachers, Yasir Hotep, he created Kemetic yoga. He has a breathing called the Rule of 4 breathing, where you're inhaling, and this is with your mouth closed through your nostrils, holding it for 4, and then exhaling for 4 also. Because, the thought is that activating the parasympathetic nervous system, you don't really have time for anxiety. You're not focusing on the things that are causing anxiety, and you're literally calming your nervous system down with those counts.
So you kind of take away that actual option for your body to even deal with stress.
You do, while you're so mentally you're taking that away, while physiologically you're also taking it away. So it's, mind and body together.
Can we talk about stress now?
Yes.
I mean, because
oh yeah.
I mean, because this is something that I was really excited to bring you on so we can dive into, because
Yes.
Shutting down and really focusing on your breathing, I think, is a great tool. And talking about how stress is running rampant right now.
Yes.
And they feel like it's tied to almost every disease from what we see, right?
It
is.
is.
That right? Okay.
Yeah, it really is. Even without the science, and the science is there to prove it. I have this picture that, and I need to credit. I'll have to send it to you, and maybe we can discuss it at a subsequent time. But it literally shows reactions in the body with certain emotions. How certain emotions and feelings impact organs in the body.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was very, very scary, if you will.
You know what's wild about it is that I wouldn't even really be able to understand that if I didn't see some of those images from earlier this year with like EEG headsets to see how people's brain lights up when certain things hit.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And so if you take that and your exposure to those things and think about stress and how much, whether it is advertent or inadvertent stress, it's still stress. And yes, the body sees some stresses, as more natural stressors, but we are in a state of fight or flight all the time. So we have to consciously do things to activate our parasympathetic nervous system and calm ourselves down. Yeah.
Especially for those high performers. You talk about the CEO, you talk about the guys that have to perform in front of people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you got the athletes that got to show up, and we're looking at every metric that they do.
Everything.
And we're analyzing and splitting those hairs. I mean, stress is a nonstop.
It is.
And that's not even talking about like the whole family life yet. It even got into the everyday living yet.
Not even.
Yeah.
A lot of people, high performers and very high level thinkers, pride themselves off of thriving on stress.
Right.
They say, "Oh, I'm in the zone, I'm thriving on stress." When really, yes, they may in the moment, but who knows what damage that stress is doing over time. Yeah, that's true.
Is there good stress? Are there good stressors?
I don't think so. A lot of people may disagree with me on that. I don't think so. I think that an area of high and low is out of the flow. Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. An area of high and low is out of the flow. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
It rhymes too.
Yeah.
I mean, but because for years we're like, okay, we want to work out hard. We want to stress the muscle. We want to stress the body, and then we can repair it, and then it grows back stronger, right? But you think about the same thing happening. And I think to your point, the fact that we're in this nonstop stressor, like you wake up, your phone's dinging at you probably. Unless you've done a good job of putting it away, which I never do. Right?
Why am I not surprised?
I know, right? As a guy that doesn't have time. No time to stop in San Francisco.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, all right. So, you look at some of these athletes. I know that there's athletes coming out talking about being stressed, and especially some of the bigger guys. It's not a typical thing.
Yeah.
How's that being received, do you believe, with your actual clients? Do you think that your clients are getting to the point where they feel empowered enough to kind of say, hey, I'm mental overload now? Or is that still like a taboo subject? I'm just curious from the, what's happening inside your practice.
Unfortunately, I'm doing a lot of triage, and I say triage, medical term, not necessarily emergency room, not from that perspective, but triage meaning burnout. By the time people come to me for stress mitigation techniques or performance enhancement techniques, it's usually because they've hit a brick wall. To answer your question of whether they're is good stress, and just answer that, high or low, not in the flow. I also think that even beyond stress, one of the side effects of stress is anxiety. And so that's why
it's the precursor, right?
It is. And then you have anxiety, and usually depression accompanies anxiety. And so we're seeing a lot of that, and we're also seeing a lot of undiagnosed anxiety because of what you said. Is it still a taboo? Yeah. People still don't want to admit it. Although I will say, I definitely give credit to a young gentleman on the Philadelphia Eagles
Oh yeah.
football team,
Yeah.
Brandon Brooks, I believe.
Yep, that's him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Big guy.
yeah.
Left tackle dude. Yeah.
Yeah, made a brave decision to say, hey, I have anxiety. I cannot. And what I think people don't need to understand is that a lot of times we're used to pushing anxiety to the side, but it can literally be debilitating for some people. When you're having an anxiety attack, your body literally will feel like it can't move. And for some people, their anxiety is that severe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you hear about it too. People feel like they had a stroke when they say they had a
It's true.
anxiety attack, and
It's
they
true.
might have chest pains. They say, right?
Mm-hmm. It's true. Yeah.
So that's it trying to manifest itself in the body.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That is.
That's crazy.
It's true. But self-healers, learning how to heal and give your body the tools that it needs to heal. Before we get to that point, we can do things like meditation or deep breathing. And see, these things, a lot of times people want it to happen overnight, but these are daily practices that over time you see improvement. Or over time, maybe, I don't have anxiety. Yeah, because you've been meditating for 10 years.
Yeah.
No, I've only been meditating about 2 weeks. But no, remember when we talked about that run?
Yeah.
And how that was your meditative state for you?
Yeah.
Well, yes, you have been meditating for 10 years.
That's it.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's a matter of how we see things also.
You know what's wild about it? You know, we talk about healthcare and we talk about preventive medicine, and you know, I really feel like the messaging I'm hoping will get stronger, and I want to use this platform to help do that. Is that it's one of the goals, and it's like I think employers though are the most incentivized to really say, all right, we got to do something. Insurance companies, they're like, they'd rather not spend the money. They don't want to, right? I mean.
You know, I think
what's your thoughts?
What I'm finding is in working with several companies, a blanket statement really isn't the case anymore. I think there are some insurance companies that are doing things differently, and kudos to them. I feel like clapping for them. But I also think that other employers, even if they're incentivized, may not be doing certain things also. I think that I've seen things across the board, wherein I teach Pilates and yoga in one of the big corporate buildings here. Okay. Yeah, where Deloitte is. Yeah. And the Commerce Club. And so what I see there is because there's so many companies, I think that's like one of the largest buildings in downtown Atlanta. Yeah, it's huge. Because there's so many companies there. I think there is incentive because they can aggregate their resources and provide services. There's even a golf simulator in that building, you know. Gotcha. So that's relaxing, right? Yeah. So again, combined resources yields more, benefits. Yeah. And then I think there may be some smaller companies that would really love to provide these services, but they're like, man, that'll just break us if we do. Yeah. So what's the solution for everyone? And I think some kind of regulation really on what is required in preventative care. Because companies will see the difference, but a lot of my services aren't covered by insurance. Gotcha. And that's why it's important to get the doctorate, to have the science behind it, because then you have the proof there that this is working. And so I like to say that in my program, we're probably about 10 years ahead of our time. I was about to say, no, I think it's beautiful too, because the fact that I feel like certain CEOs know it, but like you said, trying to pay for each and every their employees, even for a small company of 50 or something like that can add up pretty quick. It can add up. I mean, but then you think about the fact that you'll pay it on the back end. Yeah. But the employer also says they might not even be here for the next 2-3 years, right? I mean, that's real conversation too. Yeah, they are. Yeah. I mean, so you have to make some type of government regulation or policy to at least encourage it, you know? Yes. And I'm not to get into politics here, but I attended a breakfast a couple of weeks ago with presidential candidate Senator Kamala Harris.
Hey.
And she was talking. It was really, really great energy in the room. But she was talking about providing not only incentives for medical care, but also providing incentives for people that go into those fields, because now not many people are going into the teaching professions and mental health professions because, counselors aren't making that much money.
It's true.
Because it's a service profession. So that is something that would be really good too, because then you get more people going into these professions, and then you have more people advocating on Capitol Hill for these incentives, and then it trickles down.
That's an interesting conversation to have, because you're right. Like, so people do get into these professions and they're proud to be orthopedic surgeons, and they're proud to be certain type of, doctors and healthcare providers. But then there's other ones that are more the, preventative, especially the mental health side, where it's like, oh, yeah, we'll give you guys a couple $2 to be, you need to be, right?
Right.
Yeah,
it's true.
And it's like, well, if we did something up front, maybe we won't have to pay so much on the back end, right? I mean,
very true.
What's your whole thoughts on this? Is conversation I'm throwing out to a lot of people these days. What's your thoughts on how healthcare should be divided, right? As far as when it comes to the right side of, like, I don't mean right like politics, but the right of, like, everyone should have it's a human right, versus the privilege aspect. Because right now I feel like in the U.S. the privilege conversation is where we lay, right? It's like,
it does.
If you got it, then you can get it. If you got the money to pay, $100 per session so you can have your own private instructor, boom, you can do it. And if you have the money to afford that, you should be a little bit better off than someone else who might not be able to do that, right? And what's your thoughts on right versus privilege?
It's funny because we touched on that in regard to children a little bit earlier, but I definitely, I really hate that we even have to have the conversation of whether it should be a right or divide. Even using words like that have a negative connotation. It's like, well, that's just common sense or commonality. The human beings are human beings. Unfortunately, as our society is now, that definitely is the case, because I said that our program with Mind Body Medicine was about 10 years ahead of its time. Well, I also say that there are people that are already seeking those services, and usually it's not the underserved.
Yep.
I think that it's almost as if certain people can afford certain things, we want to keep them healthy. And unfortunately, and that's why one of the missions of my company is, regardless of socioeconomic status, is in the line, because it's true. Everyone deserves the right to be healthy.
Yeah.
So that's my take on that. Now, how is an even deeper question.
Yeah, it is.
I think it will take a lot of us talking about it more. Because if we don't speak up or say anything and just keep going to our expensive doctors because we can't afford them and have that first world privilege, then it won't necessarily matter what the third world or, even people in our first world who may still be living similarly to third world countries.
It's wild to kind of think about. Like I was telling you and your husband Mike earlier. It's like I'm about to head off to Germany because that's where my employer is based out of, and it's cool to see that fact that
it's dope, by the way.
What is that?
So that's dope, by the way.
Oh, appreciate it. But it's like literally like everyone there has coverage, and it's wild to see that the country that's the size of maybe South Carolina and Georgia combined. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're also we're huge, and we're very fragmented at times, and we got different belief systems, but it's hard to have a common sense conversation with someone that says, hey, if your grandma needs X service and you don't have X amount of dollars, which will probably be in the 5-figure range, cash, liquid. Yeah. I don't mean like, hey, you can get some money up eventually or cash in some stocks. I mean, like, you
right
need
now.
this. You got 18 hours to come up with something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you don't have that, how is it not an easy, right type of human right conversation? It's kind of unfortunate
It
because
is.
even over there, don't get me wrong, they still got the problems.
Yeah.
They have long wait times now because everybody has access.
Yeah.
And there's other things where, that wellness aspect still is like a luxury, how we experience the luxury. But it's like, but here it's a super luxury. I feel like.
It is. And some might argue the quality of care too.
Yep.
They say, well, yeah, everyone has it, but the wait times is an argument against that. And then also the quality of care is an argument against a German healthcare system. And then taking away, some people see that as taking away freedom.
Yeah.
Also,
What's your thoughts there? Go ahead. I know you got something.
I have some.
Yeah, I can tell. I
I have some. Yeah. I think I have a thought on everything in regard to mental, physical, or spiritual health. I really do. And we haven't even touched on the spiritual aspect, but that's another conversation also. As far as, quality and arguments of taking away freedom, I still think it's from a privileged perspective, because when you're just trying to live, a question of freedom becomes irrelevant.
That's true. Yeah, man. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love health. It's because it's the great equalizer to me. It's like if you don't get that, your bank account. Nobody cares.
No, doesn't matter. You're not here. Yeah.
I don't care what you pulled up in.
You can't even pull up.
Yeah.
You're not
the
here.
pull-up's not even happening.
Right. Yeah, it's just basic.
I love how we're kind of flowing with this, man, because I think there's a lot of things that you're doing that's really good for the whole community, especially for Atlanta. I love the fact that Atlanta, I feel like, after not being here for a couple of years, has evolved in some ways, right?
It has in a lot of ways.
Okay.
No, I one of the ways that I would like for it to evolve more is the preventative.
Yes, that's
wellness.
right.
Yeah, I love, you mentioned this earlier, especially because you were in health and fitness here in Atlanta at some time, and I love how the health and fitness and boutique fitness has just taken off.
It's exploded.
It's exploded. It has, but it's still a luxury ticket item because classes are anywhere between $20 and $50 a class
per visit.
Yeah, per visit. And so that's something also, but it has exploded. As far as wellness services, I do see Atlanta still being segregated in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the part that I'm not sure people are even looking at. Do you feel like, because I think when people think about health now, it's like, do you got a six pack? Are you on Instagram? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's that, but it's not the other parts.
Well, there's so many trainers out here that do look good, and you mentioned earlier from an aesthetic point, that's wonderful. But sometimes if you take their vitals or maybe do a blood workup, they aren't really healthy.
Yeah.
But they look good. And so I think that may be where Atlanta is right now.
Yeah.
There's some really cool counterparts we have all over the city who are doing some really, really cool mind-body things with yoga and meditation. And but they're usually teaching either here or outside of here in other places. And I think that's because it really is, as a business owner, hard to sustain business with where people are right now. I think people will pay for, again, the aesthetics, but they still haven't really caught on to the value of preventative care or holistic modalities. That's still coming. We're in California, or I've seen in other places. It definitely is a must. You've got to have your holistic stuff.
100%. I mean, it's funny. You're right about that. And I feel like a lot of things, and of course you already know this because you used to live out there, and it's like a lot of that aesthetics conversation has happened decades ago in like LA. Like, you think about like Arnold Schwarzenegger frame, right? And everybody was kind of juicing, and everybody looked great. The raw muscle beach doing our thing. But now it's like a lot more of like, hey, we got to figure out how to ground ourselves. And
you said ground yourself. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, and for the audience who doesn't know about that, do you mind talking a little bit about grounding yourself?
Sure. I just I don't know if everyone heard me earlier, but I was talking about a state of flow, and anything outside of, I will just say, equilibrium, feeling centered, I would say grounded. Feeling grounded is a synonym for that. Grounded is a state of feeling rooted and secure with right where you're standing. Yeah.
Have you seen people? And I guess it's one of the things that my wife's trying to get me to do more of. I feel like she's pushing me into this woo-woo corner, but I'm like,
I love her already.
It might have some playoff.
Love her already.
And she's like, you gotta take your shoes off outside because it really kind of helps you kind of
grounding, especially in the grass. At a park.
Yeah.
It's really grounding, or just laying in the grass at a park. Definitely grounding. You're feeling one with the earth. Right. You can't help but be grounded. Feeling the earth.
It does have some benefit. I'm not sure what's happening to me. I like keeping my kicks on outside. I'm way too city for that. I come from Pittsburgh, right? Can you imagine how this guy looks?
That's okay. Happy wife, happy life. So you're good. Yeah.
It's true. And so just kind of talking about her for a second, she's huge into dance, and she loves this whole movement, this medicine approach, and of course I'm already into it too. But can we talk a little bit about movement as medicine? I think this is one of those angles that I think people need to express and practice. But
absolutely,
how does it relate to dance? What's your thoughts on the future of it?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll let you dive in.
Yeah, sure. And let's see, the mid 1990s. Dating myself now, but in the mid-90s, I started studying kinesiology in my dance program at UNC Charlotte. And we started learning about how all the bones and muscles work together, essentially learning dance from inside out. And when you look at indigenous persons, whether it be Native American, anyone throughout the African diaspora, anyone in Latin America, you can always see that their celebrations are akin to dance.
Yeah.
And even if it's a celebration of life, a funeral, there's dancing.
Yeah.
And so when you think from starting at the foundation in that regard, all of that plays a part into releasing energetically in the body. Because energy healing and studying energy medicine also through my program, yet another thing. Yes, we all are made up of energy, and sometimes things that lie dormant in the body or things that are going on in the body just simply needs to be released. And sometimes movement is that way. For you, it may be you're running or lifting or what have you. For me, it may be yoga and Pilates. For your wife, it may be dance. She, with the movement, she's expressing herself. It may even be a way of mental health for her also,
How much of it do you believe is cultural, or maybe kind of, tapped based into our DNA? Because you talk about people that are African descent. Like, do you think that's a big piece into the fact that dance may play a bigger part in how we're made up, and pretty much how energy moves for us? Yeah,
I think that without actually having data in front of me, but just all of the dance that I've studied, the different types from, modern to jazz to even traditional West African dance, all of that kind of plays a part into how we operate in subsequent generations. My grandmother right now, she is dancing in the hospital bed. It's in her, ingrained in her. So yes, I do believe that not only dance carries through generations and maybe DNA specific, but I also believe a lot of things come through generations, good and bad.
Yeah.
And so in that self-healing, we're, really required to promote and bring with us what serves us and leave behind what doesn't.
Have you seen any type of research based on or any data out there about what type of dance is the most healing?
I think it's subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for everyone it's different, just similarly to the way you fast versus the way your wife fasts. Maybe there's a style of dance that you might like, or just walking with your shoes on or off in the grass.
Yeah, I like the shoes on.
Okay, well, shoes on. But it may be healing to her to do modern dance or ballet. That may be healing to her, but no, I don't think that there is one particular type of dance. I have studied how movement in general can help with healing, but not necessarily any particular type, because then you get into actually having to qualify and quantify which people feel certain ways and receive certain benefits from each particular type of dance. That actually might make a good study.
Hey. If you need somebody to be offbeat, I got you.
Okay, got duly noted. Yeah.
All right, I got a couple personal questions here.
Okay.
And we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but I'm curious about this one.
Yeah. Go for it.
Why do you feel like there isn't a lot of Black women represented in healthcare? I feel like I haven't seen the research. Mm-hmm. This is purely me just going off my own, observational data here, right?
Yeah. And so that might be a layered question because we speak of in healthcare. And then you look at how in healthcare, because of course, being a Black woman myself, I do know quite a few Black women in healthcare.
Of course. And
I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Very, very high concentration of Black women. So my view of Black women in healthcare may be skewed, and I get that. I will say in my Ph.D. program, there are less than a handful of us in the program, unfortunately, and we're on the cusp of the future of healthcare. So in talking about that with my cohorts, I just believe that there are a lot of us, and when I say us, speaking of other Black women in healthcare, it's just where. I know probably disproportionately so, there are a lot of Black nurses, and nursing is a wonderful, wonderful field.
Yep.
Then physicians, probably the numbers, I would imagine, go down a bit more. And then as far as alternative health modalities, probably even more.
Yeah.
And I just think that has to do with the pipeline, and kind of coming full circle to what we were talking about with children earlier. I think we just need to go back and get the children and show them us. So the thing for me to do is to mentor someone younger who may not have even known that there is such a thing as what I do. Because unless we expose the children, there is no pipeline. So I really think that that's what it has to do with. Not enough of a pipeline to keep the numbers increasing. Yeah.
I think that's phenomenal. I mean, I think that's a perfect way to wrap up, actually, because I want to have you back. Hopefully, we can do this in like San Diego.
Absolutely,
next time.
Yes.
I mean, because the representation, it changes everything.
Representation matters.
It really does.
It matters, Joe.
I mean, just knowing that there's someone else that looks like you, may have the same dialect from the same neighborhood, however that looks, man, does it impact how you envision your actual future for yourself?
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
So you have to plug away. You got to tell people how to find you, how to find your website, whatever your favorite platform is to it.
Absolutely. Again, my name is Lenee Braxton. I am the founder of Holistic Performance Center, and we can be reached at www.holistic, that's just spelled HOL, yes, performancecenter.com. That's holisticperformancecenter.com, and we're on Facebook and Instagram at Holistic Performance Center.
Lenee Braxton, this has been a pleasure.
Likewise, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. Look forward to next time.
Next time's going to be killer. Yeah. I mean, this was killer, but next time's even more killer, I can tell.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Lenee.
Thank you, Joe. Bye.
So, just like that, guys, it's a wrap. Please go out, check out her website, get yourself a guided meditation. If you're feeling stressed out to the max, try to deploy and try to implement some of these strategies. Just a quick meditation, nice jog, nice walk. I'm practicing it myself. I'm no expert at this, obviously, as you can hear in the interview, but it's definitely worth implementing and trying to hack away at your own process to drop into your own flow state. With that said, guys, please go rate it, subscribe, tell a friend about it so they can tell a friend about it, and make sure that you go show Lenee some love.